Bam.
This is Mick Betancourt, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Can you believe this, man? Like, you inspired. John's trying to pop in right now. He's having some technical difficulties. But many years ago, 8 years ago, really, when we first started, you and JJ were the shows that John and I listened to as we did handyman jobs, you know, hanging Christmas lights.
I remember.
Walls. Yeah. And, you know, it's crazy that we're there and talking to you in your office. And now 8 years later, 1,500 episodes later, here we are, man. And there's John.
What's up, John?
Can you hear John? Okay. Well, we're live.
The joy of live shows.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Oh, we can't hear you, John.
Yeah. Okay, he's gonna try again. Yeah, live shows, right? You got to just go for it. But yeah, so 1,500 episodes, and you can't believe the list of people we've had on the show since we had you on, and you were one of our first 50 episodes, which back then was a huge number. But now it's like, oh, look, adorable, 50 shows, you know, it's nothing. We've had Hall of Famers across a variety of genres. Tito Ortiz has been on the show. We had Allie Willis, who's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Just a litany of people, man. Isn't that crazy?
Unbelievable. I got to represent the Cubs here. Hold on a second. So I normally wear a hat. You got your Dodgers hat on. I'm going to wear my Cubs here.
I used to live across the street from Wrigley. Like basically across the street from where Jake Joliet said he lived. Yeah, that's where I actually lived.
That's a great part of town.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun out there. Anyhow, yeah, I just wanted to say, man, thanks for helping us get started. Thanks for being one of the first big people to say yes to us, because it taught me that I should just keep asking and get better at asking and just keep going. And here we are.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy for you guys and to just see your hustle and determination and your faith in each other and just taking that leap to see the list of your guests and just the contentment that you have with the creative work that you're doing is just awesome.
John, can you hear and see?
Yeah, I can hear and see, and also want to do this. You know what I'm saying? That's how we go back.
That's awesome.
I would have worn it, but you know, I was kind of a fat ass when I got that shirt, and it's a little too big for me now. So
I was gonna say congrats, but it really looks like you're handling some business. It's awesome.
Yeah, getting after it. Hey, so what makes you reemerge, man, from the depths? I think you took some time off to just kind of chill out and be with family and hit the reset button, it looks like. But man, you're coming back swinging.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time. I feel like the show that I did for the theme that was the kind of narrative spine of it, it ran its course. So I felt like I was getting the same, you know, the guests, as you know, when you're committed to not finding the secret, because they're really, I guess there is a secret, you know, you just have to be tenacious with your dreams and your goals. But the people that I really respected were all kind of saying the same thing. And I felt like that area of the show had, and all of the things to discuss had been covered. And I didn't know what the evolution of that was going to be. And at the same time, one of my best friends passed away, and my mother-in-law's cancer came back. And it just became a time to pull back from everything and really focus on family. And so I continued to work, and I was working creatively, but just not, say, like in the public eye, stopped touring and stopped the podcast and just was continuing to write and produce television, but really, you know, make sure that everyone in the family was doing okay.
Excellent. So do you have any intentions on getting back out there and getting the mic in your hand and touring as a comedian? Because when we first saw you, I think I sort of kind of categorized you as a comedian, even though you were making more of your living as a TV writer. But what are you headed towards now?
We're in a super interesting time, and that's a great question. You know, entertainment has changed and continues to change. Like even what we're doing right now was an impossibility when we were, say, teenagers. Like I kind of came up in the skateboard, DIY, punk scene, among other things. I also wrestled and played sports. And those formative years and it really informed my creativity and how I approach it now is everyone's trying to narrow everything down into like, what's your brand? What's your voice? And it's like you just said, I did stand up, but I also wrote murder TV. So it's like, and I did both well, and like, I like to play chess and I also like to get in a boxing ring and have another grown man punch me in the face. So like, there's a lot of things that contradict each other. And it took me a really long time to be okay with every part of who I am. Like, I don't need to apologize for it. And it doesn't need to make sense to anybody. And my long answer to your very short question is, I launched this Substack, which is just my name, Mick Betancourt, if you go to Substack. And the whole point is that you don't know what you're going to get. So like, I have a very dramatic story, and then the next week is a very comedic story. And then there's parts of the memoir on there. And then there's part of a crime thriller that I got. And I don't want everybody to go to that because it isn't for everybody. And that's like a big lesson that I learned over this last kind of decade of doing a lot of different things with a lot of different people. Like, if you don't get me, I'm cool with that. I don't take it personally. And it's not my job to try to convince you to get me. I'm going to do what I do peacefully and with a lot of enthusiasm to the best of my ability. If you jam with it, mwah. If you don't, I'm going to keep it moving. And the cool thing about the Substack is a part of that is going to be a live performance element. So over the next 12 months, I'm going to be putting out these stories, like say in a Mike Birbiglia way, or maybe even a throwback to like some of Eric Bogosian's early one-man shows, and have it really be like, I want to go to small areas. You guys know this from my podcast. Like, I did a podcast for 3 years. I refused ad dollars. I only did free ads for family-owned businesses. So like, I want to go to small cities where comics never go to, performers never go to, and I want to roll into like a nice 100-seat space. And I'm putting everything into this Substack. So you come in, you check it out. If you like it, this is the community we're building. I'm going to support local artists, poets, everything at the show. And that's going to kind of be the roving pirate ship for my like 12 to 24 month goal. That was a fucking long answer, man, to your short question.
But I love that long answer. And I want to back up a couple minutes into your answer and reinforce the thing. Like, folks, look, when we got started in podcasting a long time ago, and now it's become a different thing for a lot of people. And I mean, there's always like, well, what's your podcast about? Like, we illustrate life. We talk to interesting people doing fascinating things. Like, yeah, but what's your niche? Like, our niche is life. Like, you can't niche out life. Life is politics, it's finance, it's kids, it's death, it's love, it's all these things. And I don't want to be siloed like that, where that's the only place I can make money. So I'd rather create something that I'm passionate about. And if you get down with what I get down with, why, chef's kiss, right? And then we go on to it. And then I want to jump on the other thing you're saying is, I'm always interested in getting on the road and meeting people from any town between here and there, wherever that is. And if that's I went to the Edmund Pettus Bridge last summer, and I talked to this old dude. He's nearly 100 years old. He's one of the guys that walks across that bridge, and I got to have a real experience with that dude because I was nowhere near an interstate, and I wasn't in a rush. I just sat with him and I talked with him, and it's powerful to talk to him and other people in their time, in their space. So I love that whole vibe of like, we're not going to go to Schaumburg, Illinois. We're going to go to, I don't know, some other small town, Rock Island or somewhere like that. That's not the normal place.
I just read poetry in a little town called Monroe. I did a reading at a Greek restaurant called Icaros with a great Baltimore writer named Rafael Alvarez, who's got a new book out. If anybody's interested in actually, hold on one second. Let me show this guy some love. This is it right here. This is his new book, Don't Count Me Out. So go check that out. Showing some love, some great indie writers. But I left LA. I live in a small town. I don't even know if there's 1,000 people who live in the town I live in. So, I mean, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Like, and I'll be here for 3 years and I'll go bounce to another place. And LA's been very kind to me. I've been busier on that side of things than I ever have. But you're growing or you're going, man,
I'm taking John off of mute.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give my cousin a shout out too. He is a retired Lieutenant Colonel Clay Novak, top of the show, has a great new book out called Keep Moving, Keep Shooting. So I want to show him some love. That book's in the other room. Fuck, put that one up too if you can, man.
I will.
Keep moving, keep shooting. What a great title.
It's on Amazon.
I'm working on it.
That's a great title. Hey, so I've been reading the stuff that you've been sending out. You know, thankfully I remained in your email list, so I got the stuff, and you know, it's I'm really enjoying it. It's interesting. It really speaks of you, in that it's, you know, it's a little provocative. It's not afraid to use language. It's not afraid to explore fun topics, and I can certainly see the whole thing of if I'm doing what you like, then let's go. If not, yeah, whatever. But, you know, it's a lot of fun to read. It's crafted well, of course. And so this whole thing that you're doing now is more focused on allowing straight access for those of us who dig your writing right to the stuff that you're doing in as long a form as you feel like. Are you trying to sort of just give people more long form stuff? Is that one of your aims because you've been writing TV?
Yeah, so I'm going to I'm serializing a crime thriller novel called Freedom, and then I'm putting out bits of the memoir, which are actually, you know, some stories that I've told on previous podcasts, including my own, all kind of autobiographical stuff. And then short fiction. There's going to be poetry on there, and then I don't even know if I guess I'd call a podcast because that's just going to be the format that I'm going to use. Very similar to what Pete just said. You know, when I come across somebody interesting, I'm going to record it. I'm going to mash it up with some stuff, and it's only going to be available, just like the old episodes of the podcast, behind the paywall. And the paywall is super cheap. It's $6.99 a month. Now, I know you can get Hulu for $6.99 a month too, and you're going to probably have a lot more content than on my Substack. But I'm trying to not only invest in myself, but in the belief that I have in the audience, which is I don't want to just put this is my own personal choice. I mean, everyone is approaching their path in their own way, but having done it a bunch of different ways now with just the experience that I have, I want to create a place that not a lot of people know about. Like, I don't want a broad success and access with the thing that I'm doing. And I don't even know how that may sound. I'm just speaking my truth. Like, I just want people that like this thing and they can come together, and there's a cool like comment section that's slowly starting to build, that I'm going to build the community of people talking about poets they like, musicians they like. And that's all going to hopefully inform the tour, that when I go to their town, I saw the feedback of who they'd like to see. And I get a really cool poet to come in and open the show that's local. So I'm trying to create this space where you can read this crime thriller, read some cool memoir pieces, read some cool poetry. I've connected this random raffle thing that'll go through all of the members. And every month I'm going to pull out one email for a person that wins a piece of original art. And all of that's going to form the audience base for the live tour after a year, because it's going to take a while to build up the audience.
You know, one of the things I'm going to start doing here, and hopefully I'll be able to have John do it with me if we can build it, is we want to do custom biographical interviews for folks, targeting old folks particularly right now, but maybe CEOs or mid to small size companies. And the point here, and when I talk about this idea, everybody gets excited, but then the next question is, how do you scale it? Like, I don't know that I want to scale it. I want to do really, you know, crafted interviews that are just knocking people's socks off. And then if it's just John and I doing it, hey, that's great. You know, that'll be it. I don't even work that hard at it. I want to work hard at making it wonderful.
Yes.
And then the revenue will be great. That'll be nice. That'll help. But I don't know that I want to I don't want to know. I'm so successful. This is funny, right, Mick? I don't want to become so successful I don't get to do interviews anymore.
Yeah, and I think maybe this seems a little inside baseball for what we're talking about, but I think it really relates to anybody's pursuit that might be watching and listening to this, which is, I have friends, peers that I started out with. And like John said, I had a performing career, I had a writing career, I had a stand-up career, a drama writing career, an acting career, and my peers now are at some people that I started out with are selling out stadiums, and I love you, but they have very difficult lives, and so I had almost this empirical data where I could look, and I was at clubs, and when I was at my prime. I was like the biggest show that I did was like 2,000 or 3,000 people. I didn't like it. So I just like, there's that old saying, to thine own self be true. Like I did Sickler, who you guys know, Ryan Sickler, who was with the Crab Feast with Jay Larson and now has the Honeydew, which is doing incredibly well. Is doing his thing. You know what I mean? He was a part of your mom's house and he went and he did his own thing. He had to be himself. And Sickler and I played a 100-seat vegan punk rock club in Seattle together. And when I compared those two and we were talking, I was like, man, I like this better than the 2000 gig. And I can hang with everybody afterwards. I could take pictures with everybody. And there's an argument that you could do that in the stadium too. God bless. Do your thing. I'm a fucking knucklehead from Chicago, punk rock skateboarder who likes to screw up a little bit. I want to hang with 100 people, 200 people, and we all vibe and jam with each other. I don't believe in guru shit, star shit, none of that stuff. It's just not my thing, man. I don't like it, and I don't want to come off like that. And I think the price to pay and the character that you have to play, I wasn't willing to sacrifice that part of myself to level up. It just didn't feel right to me.
You just articulated the whole thing, I think, that Pete and I have gone through and really given us justification because that is really, what I'm hearing is that it's great to do that, and it's great to embrace it and love it for exactly what it is. Because, we haven't seen enormous success and financial reward that's come spilling over us and stuff. We've done okay, and we should love that we've done okay, and we should love that we have attracted the folks who do dig what it is that we do, and they shower us with just as much love as 100,000 people could in the way that they concentrate it. So I really appreciate that you say that, and I hope it inspires people who are watching to keep doing what they're doing and not suffer from the comparison jealousy of looking at some other person who's doing a thing that's enormous, but like you said, has a very difficult life, because that could also be. And as you say those things, sure, I love to see comedians. I mean, we saw Dave Chappelle last year, and that was magnificent. But, I love Sickler and you and Big J and the guys who you see in those 100-seat places who just put the place in a headlock, and so that has to be great. And so I appreciate that you articulated that. That's not even a question.
But you know what? I want to be clear too. I don't want to, for the record, I am so proud of and happy for those people that have that success. Like you said, it's not a compare and contrast thing for me. I think we're relating it to our own individual journeys. Like I was at a Comedy Central roast one time. This was years ago, and there was a red carpet. And I was with a manager that had been hustling his ass off for like 2 years for me to be a comedian. And he goes, all right, now they're going to announce your name. You're going to walk down this carpet. And I go, and then what? He goes, all the cameras are going to turn. And he was so excited for this. He goes, all the cameras are going to turn and they're going to take your picture. And I go, fuck that. And he's like, what? And I go, I'm not fucking walking down that thing. And he goes, what? And I go, I don't want these people to take my fucking picture. He's like, what are you talking about? And I go, no. I go, is there another way to get in here? And I could just see like the blood just run from his face as 2 years of hard work just went up in smoke. I go, this is gross. I wanted to go see the roast inside. He goes, they take your picture, they put it out. I go, no. And those are just like some signposts along the way. There's some people that'll like push you over to get in front of the camera. They love it. It fires it up. It hits them in the heart muscle. God bless them. Those people that sell out the stadiums, they're doing it for a reason. They love the charge. They love it. And it fills them in a way where that 100-seat theater with like me and Sickler hit my heart. So I have to be true, like you just said, John. Like I have to be true to who I am, because if I'm forcing myself to be these other people because I think that if I get what they have, I'll be comfortable in my own skin finally, that's just a lie that I'll tell myself. And I've seen people rip through their whole life in that delusion, and it's heartbreaking. And I will gratefully take the lessons from them, hopefully being awake and observant in my own life, that I could see that and learn from them as well, you know?
Yeah, man, that lesson is to know. It takes time to get there, though, right? Like if we got invited to a red carpet, of course I'm going to walk down. That's fun still for me, right? I haven't been through a couple of them, whatever, but I'm not really all that interested in that. You know, get my name in the paper. I'm more interested in making a connection with people, and that's come through all these years of doing this show and having all of these. I can't tell you how many new friends I have across the entire, well, really the globe, from my show, you know. And so a red carpet to me, like I don't know if that's for me either. I'll take it. It's great. I'd be honored to be invited to that kind of thing, but I don't. Yeah, at my age, I'm 53 right now. I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but I've seen things. I've been shot at. Certain things bother me. Certain things don't. And things that don't belong to me, I try not to pick them up and carry them around. I learned this from the DOC. I had him on the show, and he's like, hey, one of my girlfriends, Erica Badu, taught him that stuff doesn't belong to you. All that stuff you're carrying around on your back, put it down. And he was like, oh man, life just got way easier. I'm not trying to pick up extra stuff at 53.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, one of the things that we always loved about the Mick Betancourt show was that you told your story so candidly, and you shared all the struggles you had been through growing up and all of the, you know, the hardships that you endured, and it was part of, you just wore all those badges. But we're all about the same age, and I think, you know, I'm sort of observing that I like what you're writing. Have you aged out of telling that story, Mick?
Well, I told it as needed, I think, on the podcast. You know, I always tried to have it come underneath as it would serve any of the guests' story, you know, thematically, whatever we were talking about. But that is an interesting question from a writing point of view, almost the philosophy of writing, of, you know, should you write only what you know? Should you only write things that you do not know? Should you challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone creatively there? And I think that's a battle that almost every writer has, and each camp is pretty certain that they're right. You know, like you just keep writing what you know because it'll have that that electricity of authenticity. Or the other thing that you experience as a reader that you may or may not know is that the author was discovering that thing in the real time, and that's the electricity that you're feeling. So I feel as a writer, this is really the first time I'm writing it, and it has to come out in that form. So I'm approaching it with the hope that, almost like David Sedaris will go and tour his books on the kind of humorous essays, heartfelt essays, that I'm using my own experience to talk about religion, faith, recovery, struggle, marriage, friendship, thematically through the prism of that childhood, and then all of the crazy stuff before I got sober, and then the wild times over the last 10 years. So I also, you know, I just wrote a 100-page poem based on the prayer, the Our Father, which is taking every line of the Our Father and is a approach to spirituality and religion without a brick and mortar book-based acceptance of that version of God, to get very heady to you just ask these simple questions, John, and I'm going to muck them up with long, complicated bullshit answers while talking about Christ at the same time. That's my job.
Yeah.
On this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
I'm glad you brought that element up, that religious element, though, because one of the things that I'm going to start doing as I travel around the nation, because one of the things that I have now in the bag is I can show. So in January, John and I flew up to Seattle. We sat in front of Lee Oscar at his house. We set up cameras. We do this basic format, but it's a 3-camera shoot, if you can believe that we carry around in a duffel bag and a backpack. It's pretty crazy. And I want to go around to churches, old churches, and I want to talk to religious leaders. I don't care what faith they're from, but maybe not yoga studios, but just go out and just go experience these people. Because when we hear about things like religion, it's just a bunch of bullshit that's been processed for me. And then you go talk to the person who's on the ground, who's bringing babies in the world, sending people out of the world, joining people in love, trying to guide folks, building a community, all these things. It's not about proselytizing. It's about understanding what that spiritual gym really is like and what it means to run one of those things. And that church is probably one of the most important buildings in that town, because if it's old enough, it was one of the first things they built.
Absolutely, man. The way that I got sober, you can kind of find your own jam, find your own God. And part of the process that I use to get sober, there's a sponsor. And I said, there's a line in the text of this 12-step recovery group that I'm a part of. And it says, be quick to see where religious people are right. And I said to my sponsor when I was new, April was 20 years, nothing from the neck up. And I said, how can all these people, somebody's got to be wrong, man. Everybody's got to be wrong and one person is right, or everybody's wrong. This doesn't make any sense. And this was a tree trimmer. This wasn't a spiritual guru. This was a tree trimmer for the Department of Water and Power, as my sponsor, who was my spiritual mentor, my guide through this recovery process. And he nodded and he goes, what if they're all right? Every one of them. What if every one of them is right?
Yeah.
And so that pop, that very myopic old thinking that I had, what if everybody's right? That's an option. And it, for whatever reason, it had not been an option, and then it was an option. And it just opened everything up for me.
Man. That's been my approach. I think, every religion, all of the spiritual messages, they are based in, try to be good to each other, try to forgive yourself, try to, all of those tenets are pretty similar. And I've always thought, yeah, they're all right. Now, all of them have their nuances that may be a little weird, but just because I'm wearing rose-colored lenses and you're wearing brown lenses and somebody else is wearing a different lens doesn't mean it's not sunny. It still can be sunny. All of this spiritual talk, and congratulations on 20 years of recovery. From a guy whose most recent writing I just wrote had to do with buying a strap-on. So just to toss a nugget in there for anybody who's watching, going, I wonder what it is. I haven't read anything Mick's written. That, and then I want to say, when you talk about writing what you know, another thing that you wrote had to do with a woman who I got right up to the cliffhanger where she was in a hotel bar, and things started to get a little heated. And I think that just because you've never been on her side of the equation doesn't mean that you don't know it. So I think really what you've done and what your life experience has fed you has given you a knowledge of, interactions with people that don't necessarily mean that you have to be the character that you've walked around in for however many years you've been here to understand what somebody who's walking around in a different skin is thinking.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, because that's one of my favorite stories that I've ever written. And the twist on that, I will say what it is in general ways, and I encourage the audience to go and read it. I think there's a 7-day that I set up for this podcast. There'll be a 7-day window if you sign up for the Substack, where you get access to all the content. Is that this woman, is kind of, gets married to kind of a stable guy. They raise their kids, the kids leave, and they're kind of flatlining in their marriage, where they're just at that age where they are just with each other. And so they decide to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. He wants to not go because it's too many people. So he goes to do a tour. She gets into the whole thing. She winds up at the bar at the Montreal. And the young guy sits next to her, and there's chemistry and there's electricity and there's flirting. And she almost goes up to his room when she looks down and she realizes she butt dialed her husband and that he has potentially been listening this entire time. And it's been very flirty. And there was a request to go up to the room. So she goes up to the room. Her husband realizes he didn't hear. They have sex. The relationship goes on. And a month later, an email shows up where the guy used her last name, took a big swing. Is this you? I hope it is. I haven't stopped thinking of you. And this email correspondence happens. And at first it's flirty, and they have, they write to each other in very sexually charged terms. And then they lower their inhibitions and they have a real connection. A year later, her husband reveals that he has terminal cancer and that he's going to die. She feels awful because she thought that he found the emails. And so funeral, she goes home, she's putting away his things. She finds a letter from him. She opens the letter and it's a Gmail username and password. She signs on and he says, a year ago, I overheard a conversation between you and a young man. And I heard a version of my wife who I never met, but always wanted to. And so I emailed you and had a relationship with you the last year that I wish we had had our entire marriage. And she realized that he was the guy that had been emailing her and being able to talk to her and connect in a way that they never could. So I hope that people hop onto the Substack, but that's kind of the level of the stuff that I want to write that exposes, yes, it's a fun little story with a nice twist, but really it's about, what does it look like when you've been with somebody for a really long time? How do we really communicate with each other? And what would it look like if we really lowered our guards and got real with each other?
One of the things that I've been playing with is because of my work overseas and having to experience all kinds of different things in combat settings and talking to people and interacting with the Army, all these different things, I've learned that the specs matter: respect, circumspect, introspect, introspect, all of these different points of view. And this is kind of what you're talking about too. When you see someone from the same point of view your whole life, and you just bore this one channel where you guys communicate very well through it, but you deny that thing. And I'll use the example. So in the last year, I met my birth father, my dad, and a whole new family. And I always knew that he existed, but I'd never pursued getting to know him because I had a life and everything else. And then I realized one day, my girlfriend had been bugging me about trying to think about heavily doing this. And I realized this is a different point of view. I could, instead of me not worrying about having to, know him, I realized I was probably somebody else's brother, but I wasn't, because I didn't know them, and someone else's uncle, and whatever it was going to be. And once I made it not about me and going this direction, and I made it about the possibility of what could be going on over here in these other channels of communication, boy, it changed everything. And that your story reminds me of that, looking at things in a completely different way, because there are different ways to get to the same spot. And some of it, and not always the most comfortable way, because it's not your specific way.
That's fascinating. What do you hear?
I get the short answer. John gets the long one.
Well, I feel like we should go back for a minute and do the commercial, which is go to Substack, check out Mick's stuff. I promise you will be intrigued. And if you're not, then, you can go do something else. But $6 a month, $6.95 a month is not too much to ask. Yeah, you can get Hulu for $6.95 a month, but man, there's a bunch of things on Hulu I don't watch, I promise you. And
there's so much stuff I even forgot there was a strap-on on there until you mentioned it.
Yeah. There's so much. You know what? That's the thing, is that this is the kind of writing that will make you forget there's a strap-on. How's that for a tagline?
Totally.
So, but the thing is, you just blew the reveal on this story, which means, of course, everybody, that there's tons more where that came from. So do check it out. The thing is, as you go through this story, when you read this perspective, you don't know what this guy's thinking, the husband, and you end up realizing that it is a story that is just as much about the husband as everybody else, where he sort of started the story as the also ran. He was the least interesting person. And really, there's so much in that story that anyone can relate to. You can relate to her desire to kind of cut loose a little bit. You can relate to his desire to be the great provider that he was for the entirety of their marriage. You know, everything in there is a little piece of something that you can latch onto. And again, this is just one of those things that, as a writer, I think the soul of the writer and the job of the writer that you have embodied has everything to do with the fact that you shine a light on people's experiences, not just your own.
Well, I appreciate
Once again, I don't ask a question.
No, but it's so weird that you say that, because I wrote that crime thriller, which really is a novel about class, race, and spirit, and the pursuit of God in a crime thriller genre. And so when I sent the book to literary agents, they go, "This is great. Who's your audience?" And I said, "People who don't read anymore." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, you know, just a lot of people that don't find themselves really in stories that much, you know." And I came from the lower class, and those are my people. I didn't abandon them, and I want to tell their stories. And this is my love letter to them and that experience. And they said, "All right, well, can you make it about the wealthier people in the story, because that will just be a greater access point?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And they said, "Well, we'll give you an advance to do that because we love the writing and we think it's just an easy thing, you know, an easy flip." And I said, "I can't, you know." So I figured out a way to do it, which is the Substack. And the most rewarding thing about it is when people from those worlds that I'm writing about that point out the things, John, that you just did of seeing wealthy people and privileged people use it that way, and honoring the people that are on the receiving end of that, and not in a good way. You just don't. There aren't really in-depth long story. I mean, there are. So I want to set mine on it, hopefully on the shelf with all of the other wonderful work that has been done. That's my audience. That's my people. And I didn't want to give it up to somebody that didn't understand it, to sell it in a way that wasn't going to make sense and was never for the people that I wanted to write about or honor. And so that's why I opened that Substack up. It's just like, come on in. These are the stories. The people that get it, really get it, I can tell in the comments, because they're pointing out things like you're pointing out that are very intentional. It's the whole point. It's the whole reason that I've dedicated the last year plus of my life to shaving the story down. That novel started in 2015, and I'm just posting it now.
Dang. You know, Willie Nelson has a voice like that. He's got a lyric. "The last thing I needed, the first thing this morning, was to have you walk out on me." You know, and you're just like, damn. And he just talks, he can write a song about getting up and making coffee and knowing that you have to go to goddamn work that day and you're already tired and you haven't even done anything yet. And he just has the ability to capture that. I mean, look, he's a gift, and he's got a gift and he's wonderful. But is that something that you're trying to even like develop even more? I mean, telling that story in this setting, this place, that place, there's people everywhere that live these. That's why I want to drive around the nation and talk to people, regular people, so I can say, what is the one thing that keeps you up at night? And it's not going to be fucking Ukraine. I promise. It's not going to be Ukraine.
There was a guy that I was maybe 20. No, I was 31 or 32. I caught my first big break in television. And I was in New York, and I was scared shitless. And I'm sitting in this room with this guy who directed all kinds of shit, man, like just a big, famous, crotchety fuck, right? Like that was his thing. He looked at me square in the eye, and he goes, the only unique thing about your life is that it's happening to you. He just took a fucking double-barreled shotgun and just bang.
Yeah.
And it's true. We're all the same person. It's a sham. You know, I bought an RV. I did drive around for almost 2 years on and off, with the family, without the family. So I good on you, man, for wanting to do that. I hope you do. And even if you got to just do it in chunks, like you're hiking the Appalachian Trail, you know, however you do it, it's certainly going to be worth your time. But that's it. Like, I look at great hip hop you know, it speaks in the same poetry and cadence as the best Willie Nelson song. You put Most Def up against John Prine, and I feel like or Minor Threat's first album. Those are all in the soup. You know, Bad Brains. Fuck, you know, just listen to that. Listen to their first album. Listen to Band in DC and get your head around that, and then dig into the band. That's if I could get anywhere near moving people that way through my writing, that's my goal. And then to have that type of visceral connection in a live environment on the back end of that would be nothing short of a dream come true.
Oh.
Do you still find the same ability to reach people now that you have like thrown away all the shackles and you created your own environment on Substack? Do you get the same charge out of writing TV still within the confines of that format?
Yes, because I've had to change my expectations on what that is as well and not compare it, if that makes sense, because the freedom of this other thing is so incredible that I can't expect this other thing that is very structured and is a very specific thing to compete or hit on the same levels. There's so many other different, you know, the money right now is night and day. So the stakes are much higher on the television side. And there's also 200 other people involved. So it's much more of an incredibly collaborative thing where there's 200 partners for the tail end. Whereas on the flip side of the Substack, I set it out in front of hundreds of people right now, and getting, you know, and those numbers, thank God, are moving up every day. And then that feedback comes back. So one of the exciting things on the Substack side of the novel is I wrote the novel, but I didn't do it with an editor traditionally in the publication space. I want the feedback and the comments from the audience, and then that will inform my rewrite process. So that's on that side. But the TV side, it's interesting. I have a bunch of shows in development right now as the creator, and it's through the pros and the way that I'm pushing myself on the personal creative side is really dovetailing into the TV writing space and elevating it in an unexpected way. So I'm rediscovering things on both sides, which is very exciting.
That's terrific. I'm really glad to hear that it's informing your TV writing. When you write for TV and you're creating a show, do you find yourself creating characters around actors you want to get? I mean, is there like a direction for collaboration that's driven by actors you want to work with?
Sometimes you'll like when I worked on Law and Order SVU, you knew that you were going to get a specific guest star. That was kind of an anomaly in the TV space because there's a usual cap in the budget for what a guest star gets paid, but you would do what's called break pattern. So you could go way above that to get somebody like Robin Williams, say, for just one episode of network television. And he played a great character. I think Amanda Green, who's a great writer, wrote that episode. So that's one instance where you know who it is and you can kind of go in and cater all of the dialogue, particularly to that actor's strength. But for the most part, you have a wish list and you do a casting breakdown, and you would share with the casting director some comps of the actor that you would like to get, like the big swing wish list. Like you would say, you know, if Pete Turner doesn't do this, I quit. And then, you know, you just hope it gets to Pete and his agent and his team, and you read it and you approve it. And then you show up with a Dodgers hat, John. And I'm like, I think that's John, but we're just going to let him read anyway.
John has the best Dodgers and Giants story ever. It's so good.
I've told that story. I'll tell that story to Mick on the side, but because we've told
it's so good
on the podcast. But here's even better. This is such an inappropriate story, but I grew up with these two guys who are not even the same body type. So sort of like me and Pete, but one of them would end up in a party where, you know, he'd meet a girl and they'd end up in the bedroom at a party. And oh God, I hate the way this come out, but I've already started down the road, so I got to tell it. And he'd get up and be done and go, I'll be right back. And then the other guy would come in. And then usually it would end in, oh, what are you doing in here? Get out of here. But sometimes it wouldn't. And it's like, I want to be mad at that. I want to be like, were you guys trying to fool somebody? They were never trying to fool anybody. Just sometimes they went for it. But it was just, to me, it was like, well, wait a minute. So one of you starts the transaction and the other guy finishes, and let's slide in there just like, yeah, she won't notice.
And that story is being taught in law schools right now across the country.
Oh, I'm positive. I'm positive of it. I believe me, they've both reformed their ways. Anyway, I also want to thank you because you were the catalyst for a couple of great friendships that we have maintained in our lives, specifically Kevin Robinson and our Uncle Hilliard Guest.
Yeah.
We have remained friends with those guys the whole time, and we've done so many episodes of this podcast at Hilliard's office, and really we have you to thank for that.
Yeah.
Those are outstanding human beings, man. I haven't talked to Kevin in a minute, but Hilliard, I think I just connected with about a month ago, maybe a little less. I just saw something on Instagram today. He's doing a great panel. He's so active in the community in LA. It's inspiring and it's incredible.
Yeah, he is always busy doing stuff. He's got like 15 projects going on all the time, and he's pitching things. He's always in it. And I just wonder, like, where, forget his writing. Like, he's very successful at that, but he is always giving back, like you said, into the writing community, the Black writing community, the gay writing community, all of it all mixed together. It doesn't seem like Hollywood makes enough people like that are just constantly reinvesting. Maybe I don't know them. There is a lot of them, but he just seems really special to me.
He's the real deal. He's as real and as genuine as they come, and his story, his own personal story, is absolutely incredible. Especially the part of coming up in the mod scene in the Bay Area is just wild. I actually got a chance when I was over at his place to see two of his Vespas, which was awesome. When I think I did his podcast once or twice when he was recording it out of the house and got to see him. It was just awesome.
Yeah. One only need to see the vehicles that he ambulates around in.
Oh, the car is the shit too. The red and white car is awesome.
Yeah. That guy's something else. I think that if you take his experience, and I mean, it's really just kind of an embodiment of the thing that we've been talking about, which is the theme of what you're writing and what your audience will get a taste of on Substack, which is just all the different points of view and living and enjoying and embracing all of them.
Yeah, I think if you go on the Substack, I would definitely dip into the crime thriller, because it's chapter 4 is coming up. I'm going to put the first 10 chapters up. It's going to be serialized on the 1st and the 15th is going to be the new time when they're going to drop. But things are really going to open up, and the worlds are going to open up. And you use the term points of view are really, you think it's about this one guy, you think this guy's the bad guy, then things start to shift, and you think you understand this world, and then that shifts. And so over the first 20 chapters, everything kind of flip-flops and turns on its head. And it very intentionally to kind of always put you on your heels of what's happening, which is the crime thriller genre kind of technique to keep the story moving. But really what it's talking about are those universal themes, like we were talking about when you go out into the world and meet people, of what keeps them up at night. It's loving somebody, the loss of love. My brother just passed away a couple months ago, and he had a headache and had a brain aneurysm the next morning, and that was it. He left behind a newborn son, and it was heartbreaking, man. It shattered everybody, and there were no politics on that. There was no far right, far left. There was no time for that nonsense. And in the aftermath of that, it prioritized things in a way that tethers everyone to the core of a beating, kind, loving, tolerant, supportive heart that is in our family, but also goes out to the outer edges of people that are family through love. Like, I was taken in by my aunt and uncle, so I call them my mother and my father. That's my family, man. And there's a lot of people like that. And I'm not embarrassed by that, but it's not a traditional family. My mother lost custody of me. She was a convicted bank robber. You know, she never lived an easy day in her life. That's her story. I love her. I resented her for a while. I got old enough to do the work on it and understand how hard her life must have been as a teen mom with alcoholism and drug addiction and severe mental health illness. And she did the best she could until I was around 14, couldn't do it anymore. And then when I got drunk and I became an alcoholic and I had to get sober, then I could really understand and have some compassion of what my life would have been like if someone would have had me raise children when I was in the throes of my alcoholism. And then I go, oh, now I can love my mom like I never could before. And so I share that because those are the themes. Those are the things that I want to write about. And those are the universal themes. It doesn't matter who you are. What's the capital of Hungary? Budapest. I was going to say Bucharest, but that's Romania. Budapest. I was in Budapest teaching. Their comedy scene is in like the mid 80s of the US. Like it's booming. It's crazy. And so, but there's only like 12 headlining comedians like that have like an hour of material. So the guy that runs the club and everything is like this math guy. So their shelf life for that act is about 16 months. So Matt Davis, who's a great comedian, brought me in and this comedian from South Africa in to Budapest to teach these comedians different techniques to how to develop material. So mine was coming from an improvisational storytelling point of view. And so I was speaking to them in their second language. So Pete, this goes directly to what you were saying and what you were saying, John. I said, I'm going to tell you a story for 20 minutes in your second language. Hungarian is your first language. English is your second. Sometimes English was their third or fourth language. You guys have been around the world. You know what I'm saying. So I said, in this story that I'm going to tell you over 20 minutes in a language that you barely understand, you are going to applaud twice and cry once. And they all went, yeah, right. And they crossed their arms and the body language went like this. And I'm on stage, no mic. And I'm like, oh, here we go. These are the stakes that I like.
I got you, motherfuckers.
Yeah. So I told him the story of my mother robbing a bank. The long version, the 20-minute version. They cried twice, or they applauded twice and they cried once. And at the end I said, I didn't set that up because I'm some, genius with this, or that I'm some megastar. I set the bar that way to show you the power of these universal themes, because I spoke to you in your third or fourth language in a lot of words that you didn't understand, but you understood one word. Mother. And now we are all simpatico. And then the story had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's the jam, man. Everything else is bullshit. I'm after this beating heart, man. Those are the stories that I want to tell.
Right now, I think they understood more words. I think they understood mother and love and pain.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe a big word, redemption.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you tell the story of your grandpa? Was it your grandpa that died in your arms wrestling you, basically?
Yeah, no, I went to go wake him up and he lunged out and grabbed my wrist and I thought we were wrestling. So I put in underhooks on him and I look at his face and he's turning purple, gasping. And I'm like, oh shit. And I let him go and he had a heart attack right in my arms.
Oh my God. What a crazy thing. The age we are right now, John and I are both 53. And I know you're somewhere in our neighborhood. We've come to realize that, we're just going to keep losing people in our lives that are 1 or 2 rings out, maybe 3 rings out, but that's also impacting all the other people around us in our lives. And someone has to get good at, talking at funerals and counseling one another. And I lost my brother about 18 months ago, right? It's going to continue to happen. And then you look ahead 20 years down the road, man, life doesn't get more gentle as you get older. It comes for your legs, your back, your heart, and oh my God, it can be really daunting. How do you, when you look ahead, professionally, you've got all this wealth of a great foundation so that you can go out and earn enough money to survive. But this other stuff that we have to learn now, going into our late 50s, 60s, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on that?
So for the record, I have zero faith and confidence that I have the skills to do anything. Okay. I transcribe the voices in my head, so that faucet can be turned off anytime. That's my job. People are talking, and I go, "All right, can you say that again, but slower?" Like that's all writing is. And so I'm not beneath robbing banks like my mother. If the shit. That's my. I think one of the greatest gifts I was ever given was in the wrestling room when I was in 8th grade. And I was shocked. I was shocked at what that was. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. How hard it was. I had this look on my face like, I cannot believe that this is a real thing, that people would ever come back for a second day. And the coach said, like, I wanted to quit, and he just knelt down really calmly. He was a fireman, that he would come right from the firehouse to the wrestling room. And he goes, "We don't do that here." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Quit." And I was like, "Oh." It wasn't like it wasn't like some big rallying speech. He said, "This is really hard. Like, this is going to be one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And then when you get to the other side of it, you get to say, I did it. I did it. I wanted to quit and I didn't. I did it. I finished it. I went through the whole season." And he's like, and Jay Moore talks about this. Once you wrestle, everything else is easy. Everything else is easy. I'm developing a thing with Kurt Angle, who's an Olympic wrestler. He won gold he was later a WWE wrestler, but he won Olympic gold in '96 in Atlanta. And talking to the level of commitment and drive that this person has is unbelievable, unbelievable. And so I take my lessons where I can get them, like if I know something's going to be hard, I'm good. And life, this is also a generational thing. I'm 48. It's hard, man. This thing is hard. And it's not a veil of tears, but I've had 2 of my best friends pass away, my mother-in-law, my brother. This is the last 2 years. I mean, moved across the country, had some, I got hit from every angle. Yeah, that's fucking life, man. Like, that's it. We don't quit. And my body is for sure. It's funny you say the body thing. Like, my foot was hurting. I still skateboard. I do all kinds of dumb shit. So I went into the doctor because it felt like someone was hitting my foot with a cattle prod and like an electric cattle thing. And so I go, "What is that?" He goes, "Oh man, look at your toes." And he sees my toes. He goes, "Do you see that's all arthritis?" And then he goes, "Any running or walking you want to do, you got to get that done now." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to walk." And I go, "What?" I go, "When?" And he goes, "I don't know, but that doesn't look good." So I'm like, "All right, whatever, man. I'll see you." And when I can't walk, I can't fucking walk. Then and then I'll roll up to the camera and we'll do another podcast.
Amen. You know what? I got no more questions. That's it. I'm just going to say this.
Yeah.
From the Mick Betancourt show to now read his writing and subscribe. $6.95 a month. Come on, for access to great words from a guy who's telling stories that we can all relate to, that really are a transcription of the voices in his head that are everyone's voice, yours included. So get in on Substack, look up Mick Betancourt, sign in, sign up, do it. You'll be glad you did it. Mick, thank you so much, man. Thank you for everything.
Yeah. Any final words?
If you're looking to follow on social, at Mick Betancourt on all socials, although for whatever reason, I just randomly block people on Twitter to keep my followers at 0. I don't know why I do that. I don't even know why that would be important for you guys to know.
Maybe old man cough. All right, I'm going to run these credits. Stand by. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you